All right, I am talking to Christy Frazier, the producer, Sandra Adair, the director and editor, and Jason Hartman, our Harder. Oh, I was close. Our DP for The Secret Life of Lance Letscher. Thank you guys for coming to Dallas. We're so glad to see you. Now, you guys are all out of Austin, right? Or is it just you, Sandra?
No, we're all from Austin. We're all from Austin.
Good film town, Austin.
Oh, yeah.
And also, well, a good arts town in general. Tell us a little bit about your subject, Lance, and how you guys came to know him and appreciate his work.
Came to know Lance because he started about 18 months ago. He was commissioned to do a metal outdoor piece of work, a huge piece for South Congress Avenue, which is a real hip section of Austin. And I happened to look at his Google images of his work, and I realized he's normally doing very, very fine, tiny X-Acto knife cutting on paper, and I was curious about how he was going to make this transition from paper to metal. That was the seed of the idea, which then exploded in my face once I met Lance, because he is a very, very thoughtful, dynamic, and he's just a very unique person who spends a lot of time thinking about his own creativity and where creativity comes from. And I was curious about it in terms of what informs my work as an editor. Maybe it's kind of the same of what informs his work as a collage artist. And we had a lot of conversations about the similarities in our work. And we bonded and we became good friends, but underneath that, we revealed a man who's had a very interesting personal story, and his personal journey is reflected so well in the art that I was immediately sucked into the story.
You know, I thought, to kind of double back a little bit, I thought about the same thing. I was like, well, she's kind of a collage artist in her own right, an editor, taking lots and lots of pieces to form a cohesive whole. So with that in mind, would you say, I know this is your directorial debut, but I also know you're a very busy editor, have worked on some Oscar nominees, some of the biggest films of the last 15 years. So do you find that your work as an editor kind of informs your style as a director or your choices of subject as a director?
I don't think there's any separating myself from being an editor, even as a director. I mean, I am an editor through and through. And so directing was just an extension of my editing brain. And I can't really distinguish between the two right now, but yeah, I mean, I'm an editor. That's who I am.
All right, so Jason, let me flip it to you. I was listening in on your interview over there, and I'm curious, as a cinematographer, is it different working with a director who is perhaps also a writer, or a director who's also an actor, versus director who is also an editor?
Yeah, no, it's very different. You know, one of the reasons I decided to do this film is because Sandra is such a great editor, and I knew no matter what I shot, she would make something incredible with it. And that's, you know, the creative process of, I was just going to capture everything I could and give her all the angles and give her all the coverage so that she could have room to play. And she's the real collage master of the film. So, you know, she was the one that pieced it all together. I was just the one that provided all the little pieces.
He got the pieces for your mosaic.
Yes.
Yeah.
For your collage.
Yeah.
Whoops. So before we go, Christy, I wanted to ask you about, you know, it's really interesting. You're not the only documentary here that talks about art or that explores art coming to life and the, you know, the interaction with the human soul, if you will. But we're in a time in our country when, you know, American art is maybe under fire is not the word, but under some stress.
Yeah.
Texas film in particular is under a lot of stress. So as a producer, like, how are you feeling about all this? How do you proceed in your work and keep your director and your crew just soldiering on?
Well, I think that this film is actually a testament to that, because we raised money for this film just purely by grants and by individual donors, and I think that really speaks to the fact that people want to have art documentaries, and they're so hard to get made and they can't get publicly funded, but there are still humans out there that want art and they know how important it is, and this is a very important story for people to be able to use and utilize in educational markets and that kind of thing, to be inspired. And I don't think inspiration needs to die just because our government would like that to happen.